YouTube, it's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, two-division world champion, currently the reigning WBC middleweight world champion, superstar boxer, Jermall Lions Only Charlo, 31 wins, 22 wins by way of knockout, no losses. He's 30 years of age. He stands at 6 feet tall with a 74-inch arm reach. Last time we saw him in the ring was against Sergey Deryanchenko. That was September 26th of 2020. He got a unanimous decision victory. Now he will be taking on Juan Maceo Monteo. That's scheduled to take place June 19th in his hometown of Houston, Texas. With that said, Jermall Charlo has been called out once again. Okay? Now we know a few people have been calling out Jermall Charlo. Now by British superstar boxer, 29 wins, 2 losses, 22 wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age. He stands at 5'11" with a 73-inch arm reach. He will be taking on Marcus Morris this weekend. I'm talking about Chris Eubanks Jr. Chris Eubanks Jr., you know, he's the WBA middleweight interim champion. And now he says he and his team, they had their sights set on two-time unified middleweight world champion superstar boxer Gennady Triple G Golovkin. But Golovkin, he has his sights set on a unification bout with Murata December 31st, the end of the year. He's not looking to fight again until the end of the year. So that is a disappointment, to say the least, within the sport of boxing. But Chris Eubanks Jr., he said he and his team, had their sights set on a Gennady Golovkin fight at the end of the year. With that said, we know Chris Eubanks Jr., he fought on Jermall Charlo's undercard, and he was looking to have a fight with Jermall Charlo. It seemed like that was the trajectory. They were looking to build a fight between Jermall Charlo and Chris Eubanks Jr., but it didn't come to fruition, okay? Obviously, the global pandemic started to take place, and things started not to, was trending downward. Nobody knew what was going to happen with sports, so on and so forth. Gennady Golovkin, 41 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 36 wins by way of knockout. He's 39 years of age. He stands at 5'10.5" with a 70-inch arm reach. Last time we saw him in the ring was December 18th of 2020 when he took on Kamel Someta. He got a stoppage victory, but now he's saying he's not going to fight again for a whole calendar year until December 31st of 2021. So last time we saw him in the ring was December of 2020. Now December of 2021 is the next time he's looking to grace the squared circle. So Chris Eubanks Jr., he said, well, then I guess I have to set my sights on Jermall Charlo because I know I could beat that guy. He says, I just want to fight a guy that has a title. And I have my sights set on Jermall Charlo, but obviously I have to get past Morris this weekend first, and then we're looking to have the fight with Jermall Charlo. He says maybe even, WBO undefeated two-division world champion Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, who just defeated Liam Williams this past weekend. And he stated that, that's a fight that he would like to have as well. He feels like that would be an exciting fight, but he knows for sure he could beat Jermall Charlo. So he says he wants to make the fight with Jermall Charlo, any of the champions, since Gennady Golovkin is not going to be available. With that said, we know that super middleweight, a 2-time world champion, WBC, Mexican superstar boxer David Benavidez, he had called out Jermall Charlo, and so we know Demetrius Andrade recently called out Jermall Charlo. Now we add Chris Eubanks Jr. to the list. And like I said, Chris Eubanks Jr. he was the co-main event to Jermall Charlo's fight when Jermall Charlo fought Chris Hogan. And it seemed like, we was going to get a Jermall Charlo, Chris Eubanks Jr. showdown. It was the trajectory was going in the angle in that direction, okay? I believe that, Chris Eubanks Jr., I like Chris Eubanks Jr., I like his approach to the sport. He's very, very confident in his abilities. But, he has one big win, in his career, in my opinion. I think that he's underachieved in his career. He lost to Billy Joe Saunders. He lost to George Grove in unanimous decision to George Grove. The biggest win in his career to me was the James DeGale win, and that was for the vacant IBO title at super middleweight. Okay, so yes, the IBO title is an official belt. It's not one of the 4 major sanction bodies. He lost his biggest fight to Billy Joe Saunders, and then he lost to George Groves. Okay, and then he got the victory over James DeGale. That's the biggest victory in his career. But I believe that he believes that he's much better than what he's actually displayed in the ring. Okay, now he's trained by a legendary, iconic, Hall of Fame superstar boxer, Roy Jones Jr. And Roy Jones Jr., he's been trying to give Chris Eubanks Jr. a lot of tips, a lot of adjustments he's making to his career. He's very athletic. He does have power. He could be unorthodox at times, but he lacks defense. And I believe that Jermall Charlo size, Jermall Charlo's power, Jermall Charlo's skill set, Jermall Charlo's discipline will see him stop Chris Eubanks Jr. I think that Chris Eubanks Jr. makes too many mistakes for Jermall Charlo. Now, we got to see how Chris Eubanks Jr. Fares now that he has Roy Jones in his corner. What adjustments has he made? Has he shown leaps and bound improvements? Because that's very key, that you have defense when you're dealing with a guy like Jermall Charlo, who's very, very technically sound, who has power in both hands, who doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Now, he can be flat-footed at times, but he has probably arguably top 3 jabs in the sport of boxing. And like I said, he has a high ring IQ. So, that would be a very difficult fight for Chris Eubanks Jr. if indeed he's the same guy we saw against Billy Joe Saunders and George Groves. Okay, now even the guy we saw when he beat James DeGale, he still was making a lot of mistakes. And James DeGale, he looked like he was far past his prime. Looked like he had absolutely nothing left. Not to take anything away from Chris Eubanks Jr., but the facts are the facts. But even in that fight, he still was making mistakes. He swings. He opens himself up very widely. He gets very, very hyperly aggressive, and he makes a lot of mistakes. So, I believe that would be tailor-made for Jermall Charlo, and even Demetrius Andrade. Okay, because Demetrius Andrade is very, very accurate. Okay, Demetrius Andrade has a high ring IQ. Now, Demetrius Andrade, his last fight with Liam Williams, I wasn't that impressed. I was actually disappointed because I thought that he could have done a lot better. But Demetrius Andrade, his length, his boxing IQ, the fact that he's a southpaw, he has power, he throws punches when you least expect it because he's so athletic and has such a high ring IQ. He throws that uppercut that he was landing on Liam Williams, from a distance that you normally don't see. Usually you throw an uppercut mid-range or in close. He could throw it from the way out on the outside because he has extremely long arms. So I think that Demetrius Andrade, he beats Chris Eubanks Jr. as well. But I do believe that the pressure that Chris Eubanks Jr. put on Demetrius Andrade make it an ugly fight. Because if Liam Williams is not as athletic as Chris Eubanks Jr., he's not as skilled as Chris Eubanks Jr. And he just doesn't bring to the table what Chris Eubanks Jr. does. If he could pressure Demetrius Andrade and make it a rough, rugged, ugly fight for Demetrius Andrade and make Demetrius Andrade uncomfortable, Chris Eubanks Jr. can do so as well. The thing is with Demetrius Andrade is that he has such special moments within the fights. Even though you make it an ugly fight or make him uncomfortable, he has such these little slight special moments and so often that he wins the fight, and I believe he'll do the same thing when it comes to Chris Eubanks Jr. because, again, he opens himself up far too wide. He makes himself vulnerable on defense. He gets hyperly aggressive, and he's tailor-made to make mistakes. So Jermall Charlo, I believe he'll stop Chris Eubanks Jr. Demetrius Andrade, I believe he'll get the victory, a decision victory over Chris Eubanks Jr. Now, obviously, Demetrius Andrade, he's with DAZN. So I think that that's the easier fight to make because right now he's doing business with Matchroom and DAZN. So, I'm sure that it would be easier to make that fight, but he's a free agent, okay? He's not committed to anybody. And like I said, he was on Jermall Charlo's undercard, with the PBC. So, he can make the fight with Jermall Charlo as well. I would love to see this fight for Jermall Charlo. This would be a bigger name for Jermall Charlo. Chris Eubanks has only fought once here in the States. It wasn't and the fight ended because of an injury. So he didn't get to truly display his talents like he was planning to in his debut here in the States. That was against Matt Koroboff. That was an opponent in which Jermall Charlo struggled with, when his identical twin brother Jermall Charlo lost to Tony Harrison. Matt Koroboff fight, he got a TKO victory, but Matt Koroboff was injured in the fight. It saw him awarded the WBA interim title, Chris Eubanks I'm talking about. But he just didn't, impress. So here's another guy not too many people know about, his next opponent, and Marcus Morrison, who has 23 wins, 3 losses. He's 28 years of age, stands at 5'11". He's from the UK, relatively unknown, especially here in the States. And he's going to look to be impressive and then look to land the fight with Jermall Charlo. But I believe that he's barking up a tree that, may just fall on him ultimately, because I believe that Jermall Charlo will stop and knock out Chris Eubanks Jr. But this is a good fight. If Jermall Charlo, can't land the Triple G fight, doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade because of the history they have, and is not looking to move up to 168, well, Chris Eubanks Jr. is a viable option for Jermall Charlo. Let's see how this unfolds and plays out. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
Hey, this is Ebony Bridges, Blonde Bomber, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.